Hey everyone, we've been posting these weekly videos for about 2 months now, and if you've been following along since the beginning, your exam is probably just around the corner. At SeeWhy Learning, we believe the first 2 minutes of your exam is the most critical. So with that in mind, this week we want to give you 2 exam writing tips. Number 1 being doing a brain dump, and number 2, creating a roadmap. Let's take a look at each. So what do we mean by do a brain dump? Have you ever had a piece of information that you memorized and used a ton of times, but the moment somebody asked you for that information, your mind went blank? It happened to me the other day when somebody asked me for my parents' phone number, and I don't want that to happen to you on your exam. So we recommend doing a 2-minute brain dump. The moment the exam starts, even before reading the first question, flip your exam over and do a brain dump. Write down some of the things that you're worried about forgetting, or even perhaps some memory aids that you want to have handy. Now the list is going to be different for everybody. For example, for me, part of my brain dump was the taxation of dividends and the risk level of different mutual funds. Now think through your brain dump before exam day and practice writing it out quickly. If you practice, you'll be surprised at how much information you can jot down in only 2 minutes. Now a very important note. Make sure you do your brain dump on the back of your exam paper and not on a separate piece of paper, so it's obvious you didn't bring that information into the exam with you. Tip number 2 is create a roadmap. Have you ever been in an exam and heard the proctor yell out, "Time is half up," and you look down at your paper and you're nowhere near halfway done? Or even worse, he yells out 2 minutes left and you're nowhere near being complete. Now you might think that won't happen to you, but in a stressful exam environment, it's so easy to lose track of time. And in order to prevent that from happening, we recommend creating a roadmap. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, let's assume your exam starts at 6 p.m., it's a 100-question exam, and you have 2 hours to complete it. In other words, you need to do 25 questions every half hour. Now, the moment the exam starts, after you've done your brain dump, go to question 25 and write 6:30. Go to question 50 and write 7 o'clock. And go to question 75 and write 7:30. And now you can begin your exam. Now, when you get to question 25 and you see 6:30 written beside it, it's as though your trainer is there tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Hey, you were supposed to be here by 6:30. What time is it?" Now, if it's 6:25, you can breathe a sigh of relief because you know you're ahead of the game. But on the other hand, if it's 6:40, you know you're behind. But the good news is you have lots of time to get caught up. Now, when you reach your first checkpoint, expect to be behind. Don't let that alarm you. Most students will be behind at the beginning. The idea is nobody wants to get the first question wrong, or even the second. So at the beginning of the exam, we tend to be too careful. And when you hit one of these checkpoints, that will be a reminder that you need to smarten up a little bit, and if you know the answer, select it, and if you don't, sitting and staring at a question isn't going to change that fact. Now, if you map out your exam and you use this strategy effectively, at the end of the exam, if you have time, you can then go back and rethink about questions that you weren't sure of, but you're doing that now that you know you have the time and not at the expense of leaving a bunch of unanswered questions at the end of the exam.